Chapter 1 Pass. You are listening at FameTV.info. Chapter 1 Crossing, Resignation. It's been 2 days. Su Jin, who was lying on the bed, turned his eyes and looked at the room. The dimly lit hut was dilapidated, there was no decent furniture, and even the bed under him had a musty smell of rot, and the stubbornness was unbearable. The sound of the north wind whistling outside could be clearly heard through the window. He was covered with a thin patched quilt. Even if he curled up in a ball, Su Jin felt cold hands and feet, and his vest felt cold. 2 days ago, the original owner died of a cold, and she opened her eyes after a car accident and came here. Su Jin stretched out his hand tremblingly and looked at his own hand. With these hands, taking pulses, prescribing prescriptions, picking the best medicinal materials, and doing the most rigorous tests, she was once a well-known young genius doctor who inherits family studies, academies of Chinese and Western, and is famous. But, I can go back. These skinny hands that look like chicken feet are not her original pair of beautiful hands that save lives and heal the wounded and turn decay into magical and beautiful hands. Confused and frightened, she has no choice to accept her fate now. Su Jin sighed softly, twitched the corners of his mouth, and tried his best to make himself a smile. Since the reality has not changed, she should live with a smile. Fortunately, in that world, she has long since lost her relatives, so she can be regarded as carefree. Is also a coincidence, the original owner is also called Su Jin. Su Jin was about to get up when the dilapidated door was suddenly pushed open rudely. With the cold wind blowing in, someone walked towards her. Su Jin shuddered violently, and subconsciously closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep. With just one glance, she could see clearly that the person who came was Mrs. Fong, the elder sister-in-law of this body, which was not a good match. Fong was overjoyed when he saw that Su Jin was sleeping quietly, and without hesitation, he reached out and groped around her, as if looking for something. Su Jin instantly understood, and then became furious. Su Jin opened his eyes with a swoosh and stared at Mrs. Fong coldly. "What are you doing?" Fong Shi was caught off guard and said, "Ah," and took a step back subconsciously, with the embarrassment and guilt on his face that he was caught, but in the next second, she held her head high and her chest trembled, and stretched out her hand towards Su Jin. "Where / the jade pendant? Don / you hurry up and bring it. Don / forget that I saved your life, I Don / want a jade pendant from you too much. Right. Bring it. Save her life." It really saved her life, but it wasn't / like that. Mr. Fong really dared to say it. About half a year ago, the original owner wandered and fled all the way and ended up in a dilapidated temple outside Xiaohe village. He was half dead and was seen by Mr. Fong. As for what happened before the wandering and fleeing, Su Jin can / remember at all now. She only knew that something terrible seemed to have happened, and the original owner was lucky to have escaped. At that time, the old couple of the Qin family were discussing marriage with the third child, Qin Lang. Qin Lang was not the biological son of the old couple, but was picked up and adopted by the old couple. Qin Zhu and Qin Liang, the real brothers of the Qin family, were already sensible at the time, and they didn't / like this so-called younger brother who was abruptly parachuted into their own territory. Later, they married a daughter-in-law and had a child. The two daughters-in-law instigated them, and the two brothers hated Qin Lang even more. I always felt that without him as an outsider, life at home would definitely be much better, because he made the family poor. Now that he has to spend money to marry him, he is even more upset. So, seeing Su Jin alone, Mrs. Fong moved her heart and took her back, even threatening and intimidating, forcing her to marry Qin Lang. Save more money. Moreover, the original owner was ill and expected that he would not live for long. If he died, it would be Qin Lang / wife, and he would not have to marry him again in the future. How wonderful! How could the original owner dare to resist when he was angry and afraid? Had to swallow it up. Although Mr. Fong did not die as he wished, his body has always been quite weak. 2 days ago, he had a cold, and he was beaten and scolded by two sister-in-law and poured cold water over his head. He fell ill again immediately. But Qin Lang went into the mountains to make charcoal with others a few days ago, and was not at home. If it wasn't /T for her mother-in-law, I am afraid that the original owner would freeze to death at that time, and she wouldn't /T be able to pass through Su Jin at all. When the original owner was rescued, she was in tattered clothes, and she didn't /T look rich, so no one searched her body. But on the day he fell ill, he accidentally revealed a jade pendant, which was watched by both the elder sister-in-law Fong and the second sister-in-law Lu. Both of them wanted to monopolize it, but neither of them had the opportunity to take the jade pendant from her alone. Staring at each other creates an eerie balance. Until this time, I don't /T know where Lu /S family went, and Fong /S finally took time to come, but the original owner had already changed the core and became Su Jin. Su Jin refused without thinking. No way. She will not give. This is the original owner /S thing, she will not dispose of other people /S things indiscriminately. Second, this Fong Shi was too disgusting, and she was very upset. What? Fong Shi never expected that this mute little hoof would have the courage to reject her so neatly, so he was furious and went forward to search and rob her, cursing in his mouth. You little hoof with no conscience. You owe my mother a life. What /S the matter with my mother asking for a broken jade pendant? What /S wrong? You hand it over to my mother. Let go. Su Jin was furious and resisted. Originally, it was bad enough to be a peasant woman because of crossing the border. She finally accepted her fate and adjusted her mentality. This Fong Shi was bullying so rudely and arrogantly, causing Su Jin /S depression that had been holding back for 2 days to turn into a raging bear. Furious, one turned over and got out of bed, and fought against Mr. Fong. It is said that Su Jin has just recovered from the cold, and only her kind-hearted mother-in-law has come to feed her rice soup with almost no grains of rice in the past 2 days. But people have the potential to explode when they are extremely angry, and for a while, the two of them were evenly matched. Plus Mr. Fong never thought that the half-dead, petite and slender Su Jin would have such a powerful explosive force. He was dumbfounded at first, and when he came back to his senses, he could no longer regain his disadvantage. Su Jin is a doctor and knows where to hit the most effective and most painful. Punched in the past, Fong Shi screamed and half of his body was numb, and before he could turn around in one breath, Su Jin pushed him to the ground and continued to fight. Ah! Little bitch, my mother beat you to death. Fong Shi was shocked, angry and painful, his hands danced wildly, and his feet kicked around in a frenzied counterattack. Su Jin suffered in the end because of his recovery from illness and frailty. After a while, he was out of breath, blackened before his eyes, and broke out in cold sweat. On the contrary, Fong became more and more brave the more he fought. Little hooves, I am not finished with you. Fong Shi grabbed Su Jin /S arm and raised his big palm to slap her hard. Su Jin couldn't /T avoid it, and closed his eyes in despair, even feeling it. The wind from the slap rushed toward the face, the expected pain did not occur. Instead, I heard Fong /S scream like a pig. Ah! Let me go, let go. Su Jin slowly opened his eyes, raised his head slowly, turned against the light, and saw the tall figure of the man and the contours of his facial features. At this moment, the man /S big, well-joined hand firmly clasped Mr. Fong /S wrist, motionless. The original owner /S memory told her that this was her cheap husband. 11 new books are open, welcome to support. Please continue to pay attention, there will be activities every day after signing the contract. End of this chapter. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.